Hello. I'm happy to be having a meeting with all of you on Monday. Um, so many of you, Joyce has said many of you don't know anything about me or who I am um, yeah, so she asked if I would create a little video, and I have sacral authority, and I went, uh-huh. And so here I am, just to tell you a little bit about me, huh? Um, I guess the best to describe is, I just uh, lived a normal, a normal life, and I lived in New York, and I went to school, and I had my family and friends, and then I got married, and I had a daughter, and then I got divorced, and I worked many different jobs. Um, yeah, I was very young when I first met my husband, my first husband. I was only 15 and he was 20. And my dream had been to be in the Peace Corps to help the planet and to help humanity. And I had to smile when I saw in human design I have gate 15, which is the love of humanity, but it has to be from my sacral responding to that and not an idea of that. Anyway, but there was something in me that was just like, there's got to be more to life than this, huh? There has to be more. And I had no idea what it was. I did everything that, everyone was doing, the school, the job, the family, the child, on and on, all of this, but that there was something still inside, yearning for something. And then I lived in New York, like I said, and then it was like I need to leave New York. I need to search. I have the gate 11 too, which is the gate of the seeker. And remember, I didn't respond to any of this, okay? It was all just being taken in a sense, but also my mind being very much involved with everything, which is not wrong because we are all meant to be where we are, no matter how we got here, okay? So I ended up, my father gave me a car that he had. It wasn't a new car, but an older car, but it was in good condition. And I put my daughter in the back seat. She was 4 years old. And I drove from New York and I had no idea where I was going. I had some money, not much, because I was not wealthy and there were no credit cards back then. I mean, we're talking the 1960s, huh? And uh, and no cell phones, no nothing. It was really, you were on your own once you started a journey like that. And I kept driving, and I got to Colorado, fell in love with Colorado, but it was like, something inside. So I kept going, ended up in California. So I'm in California, and um, I had no more money. My car had broken down. It used all the money I had. I had uh, I had to get a job because we had to live. I had my daughter, so I looked in the newspaper for a job, and there was a job that included a place to live on top of the house for a millionaire in Hollywood as his maid. So I took that job. Anyway, to make a long story short, through that job, I um, I met his secretary, who she and I became really good friends, and then I met through her this man that I spent much time with and lived with, and he asked me out on a date, and I had never seen him before, and he took me to a vegetarian restaurant, and back in 1960s. That was pretty unheard of. I looked at the menu, I didn't know what any of this stuff was. I ordered an omelet. And he looked at me and he said, so what's your reality? And I said, what's my reality? I mean, don't we all have the same reality? And then he looked at me and he says, oh, you think you're your mind? And I was like freaked out because yes, everything I thought that was me. And anyway, so through him, got involved in many different things, searching. I was searching, you know. Pink Floyd was there, Cat Stevens, the Moody Blues, you know, all these, Bob Dylan, all this music was giving me something. But there were no books back then. I mean, there was no self-help, there was no new age, there was nothing. So the only thing I could do was I would go into the library or the bookstore, and there was like psychology books or psychiatry books. And it was like, no, this isn't it. I knew that wasn't it, you know. It was not what I was searching for. And then what? Uh, oh, okay. So I'm in California. I moved with this man. We were in LA. I moved with him to San Francisco. And at that point, my ex-husband, my daughter wanted to visit him. And he wouldn't let her come unless I signed over legal custody. So I didn't have my sacral response. All I could do was honor her as best I could. She was 7 by this time, and explain it to her and ask her what she wanted to do. And, you know, I mean, it was a horrible time as a mother. And she said she wanted to go live with her father. And oh, that was so devastating as a mother to watch her father come. And they walked. I remember looking out the door, watching them walking down the street and just sobbing and crying. And it was like I was beyond, you know, and just so devastated. And during this time also, I had a really dear friend who played the guitar and sang. And there was a whole group of us. We were kind of searching together, but in a very kind of haphazard way, you know. And he said, can you come over? I'm really freaking out. So I went over to his house and he says, just sit with me for a second. And he sat in a meditative position. And this thick Persian voice started speaking through him. And this voice was saying he was part of a group of entities of 12, that Earth was the planet of suffering, and they wanted to help. And anyway, a bunch of us would gather with this entity through my friend, and just he asked questions and all. And after my daughter left, I was still doing this. And I remember I would by this time I had broken up with my boyfriend. I just wanted to be alone. I just didn't want to be with anyone. And I had taken a bus from San Francisco over the Golden Gate Bridge to Marin to be with this group. And then when I walked in, he said, you leave. I'm only a teacher. You need a master. And I was like, what's a master? What are you talking about? Crying, because this was the only thing that was holding me, in a sense, to myself and whatever I thought of as myself. And it was like another devastation, you know. And this was all before I turned 28. I was, and by this time, I think around 20, 26. And I had to leave, and then they locked the door. I couldn't get back in, and I'm crying, and I'm going to the bus stop, and I get on this bus to go back to my home in San Francisco. I had a little apartment, and all I wished for was the bus to go off the bridge. I really wanted to die. I really wanted to die. I didn't know anything about human design. It wasn't even on the planet. It hadn't arrived yet. I didn't know I was a 6-2 in those first 28 years, how traumatic they are, and how so many 6-2s want to kill themselves within those first 28 years. Anyway, I didn't. The bus didn't go off. I went home. I couldn't sleep. I did smoke some marijuana. That was part of the searching. It was also the 60s in San Francisco. And I remember smoking and saying, "Thou shalt not judge, don't judge, thou shalt not judge," and going, what the hell? I was brought up Catholic. I was so against the religion and all this stuff, all these belief systems, everything. And so as soon as it became light, my body got up and I went walking all around San Francisco. I went down to Fisherman's Wharf and back up again, and I ended up in a bookstore called Solar Lights. Interesting, huh? And my whole body went towards this one section, and my hand reached out and was taking out a book. And I looked up and it said religion. And I was like, well, putting it back in, but my hand wouldn't let go. And I pulled it out, and it was called Until You Die, which was a very interesting title, huh? So it was by this Indian guru. I didn't even know what a guru was, Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, who later became Osho. And that became my whole journey with Osho. That was in 1960. No, that was by this time, it was 1970 something. Okay. So I was reading this book, and I had never read anything like that. I mean, it was all about Sufis and following your heart, and I mean, it was just speaking so much to me. I knew I had to go be with this man. So it took me 2 years to save the money to go to India. Went to India, became a sannyasin. That was 1978, exactly when my Saturn returned for the 6-2. That's a big time, huh? So at the time of going on the roof as a 6-2, I took sannyas. So I'm searching, I'm there, and it was all about celebrating and meditating and being aware. And I mean, it was an incredible experience. And then, then the ranch happened, and I got involved in that. I don't need to go into it, but it was like you couldn't say no. If you said no, you had to leave. And there was no way I could leave. This was my only hope, in a way, was to find what I was longing for. I was looking for this. And anyway, so I did write a whole book about that, which someday I might make available again, about my whole Osho journey. But right now, so then Osho died, and I then was like, oh my God. He died a week after my mother died. I mean, talk about boom, 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 huh? And then I ended up going to see Punjaji, and Gangaji and Chantimai and Krishnamurti and Robert Adams. I mean, it was like I was searching. I was longing so much for something. You know, when I was young, it was longing for the boyfriend or the lover or the husband, and as I got older it was longing for money, and then getting involved in spirituality, it was longing for enlightenment. And there was all these labels my mind put on this longing. So then it was 1994, and a friend from the sannyas days contacted me. She called me and asked for my birth information, and I sent her mine and my husband's, who I met through sannyas at the ranch. He became my husband. And she sent me back these two weird charts. This was 1994. And I was like, why is that colored? And on his chart, it's not colored. And how come I, with the mind, it was so funny. And then this little booklet of this man in this like, Arab hat kind of. And the book's all about quarks and leptons and I mean, it was just like, what is she into? This is so weird. So this was 1994. So she asked if she could come stay with us while she gave a free talk at the local library to get people interested in readings and for one of her classes. And she did. She stayed with us and she brought some books. And this was my introduction to human design. And I'm reading some of these books. It was the white book and the black book. And I was like, wow. I mean, what I was reading, I was seeing, looking up the gates and the lines on my chart, that I related to what I was reading. And also for reading about my husband. So I was like, this is an amazing system. This is beyond astrology. This is really amazing. And in those days, there was on all the flyers, because there was no internet. So everything came either in the mail or through a fax machine. There were these flyers, and at the top of the flyer, it was no blame. What was it? No blame, no shame, love yourself. And I was like, wow, here was a system to accept who you are. Now, I thought I was doing that. I wasn't miserable. I was just yearning for something. I mean, as a sannyasin, yes, I went through some tough times after the ranch, but there was this celebration inside, and this joy to be alive, but I was yearning. So here was this human design, and I bought the white book, I bought the black book, I'm looking things up, and she came a few times and I learned a little bit more. So I was learning human design for 3 years, but not in a classroom. I didn't want that. I was like, no, I can't imagine sitting in a classroom. And then she came and she said and I wanted to meet the man who this information came through. That was something I really wanted to experience. So she said she was coming, and that Ra, the man who the information came through, was coming with her. He was staying in one place, and could she stay with us again? And I said yes, and she stayed with us. And part of it was neither Ra or she had a car, that we used our car to go pick up Ra and take him to a restaurant so he could eat. So I spent a lot of time in the early days with Ra. And those first few days especially, we just talked and hang out and laughed. And I mean, it was such a meeting for me, but a meeting in the sense of a peer. I never looked up to him as, a guru or even a teacher, even though he was a teacher. It was just this, wow, what a life you've had, And there were times when it was just him and I. And I mean, we would talk for so long, just about life. He would tell me about oh my God, the life he had before he left Canada. I mean, he would tell me the stories with his first wife and all that happened. It was like, wow, So there was a free introductory lecture. And I wanted to go, of course. And I went, and a bunch of friends went. And he talked about human design in a very different way than me reading it. It was going into me. It was like, whoa, there's more. This is not just, well, it is a system, but there's something else, And so he asked if anyone wanted to have a reading and how much it was. And I asked my husband, I said, I would really like a reading. And back in those days, and we're looking at the 1990s, I think it was $350 for a reading with him. And so I booked a reading with him, and I went a couple of days later and had the reading. And he told me about my strategy and authority. And it was the first time that he brought strategy and authority out in the United States. I think he may have brought it out already in Europe. And he told me about waiting and not to stop going towards things, to stop initiating, to wait for life to come to me. And then because of my sacral authority to respond to life coming towards me. And I got excited. Anyway, that was 1997. It's almost 2027, a couple of years. So 30 years, almost 30 years of living my experiment, because I tell you, I held on to my strategy and authority for all these years for dear life, especially those first years, because everything in me wanted to live the old way I had been living. I'm not searching anymore. I stopped searching, I think 6 months into my experiment. I don't even remember anymore because I got what I had been searching for. This. And it's this that if I have energy to be with anyone in human design, it's this that I want to share with people or support people to get to within themselves. Because, oh my God, my life has transformed. And, you look at me living my life and it looks like, well, all right, it doesn't look like anything great, but you can't be inside me. You don't know what it's like there. And that is incredible. I never dreamed, and all the ideas of, awakening, enlightenment, all of that, because they were also woo, with lights and, I was going to get into this state, but this, yeah. So anyway, I just felt like telling you that story. I had no idea I was going to do that. And for those of you who want to know the story of my first 10 years of the experiment, I did write a book called The Revolution of One, and it has been translated into Chinese or Mandarin. I'm not quite sure the correct way to say that. And it's available. So anyway, I look forward to seeing you. Okay. Bye for now, huh?